I want to talk about some curricular resources and certain things that are happening which influence what we as educators are doing or would like to be doing. And one thing that became pretty clear yesterday is that every time we talk about networks, the networks that come nowadays from biology for many of the biology problems that are important are huge. So not only we cannot describe them with differential equations because it's not going to be practical to analyze those, but we really don't have the information to do that. So we don't know all the fine level kinetics information, mass action kinetics, that we would need to produce those differential equations. So other methods are necessary, and all the talks that we heard yesterday and the talks that we will hear today basically emphasize this need. And I just want to mention a few things that have grabbed my attention about what's happening on the research front. And amazing things are happening on the research front. So cancer immunotherapy, this was the breakthrough of the year picked by Science magazine in 2013. 2015, breakthrough of the year was the CRISPR gene editing, and Nature's cover was devoted to that. Time magazine this month, this is the cover of about 2 weeks ago, devoted a whole issue to this. So amazing things are happening. This is, biologists have found a way to edit genes with, for lack of a better word, surgical precision. So you really know exactly where you want to go, exactly what chunk you want to replace, and exactly what to replace it with. And it has become mainstream. You can order the kits online, and you can do this as a mainstream thing. It's no longer in the realms of science fiction as it was just a couple of years ago. Interactions between elements in the network, so protein-protein interactions in this case, and algorithms such as shortest path approach, facilitate our quest for finding ways to confront cancer. This is a paper that's about 2 weeks old, appeared in Nature. Another interesting thing that I didn't know until fairly recently, the crowdsourcing of biological research. So there is a game out there that's called Eterna, and the game is devoted to constructing RNA sequences that, this is the goal of the game, constructing RNA sequences that will fold, their secondary structure is going to be a desired pattern. So what kind of sequences do we have to have that will produce such patterns? And there are about, as of last month, there are about 100,000 players of this game. So it's a game, you get scores, some people are better than others. But the kind of ingenious element of this game is that now, after a couple of years, it really has a pipeline to a wet lab where, the best results are tested in a wet lab, so we can see whether they indeed fold the way we think they will. In 2014, the science world was kind of stunned by a paper that was produced in the Proceedings of the National Academies of Sciences. A paper appeared that was based on this game. And the authors of the paper credited 37,000 players for the discovery that they report. Just a couple of weeks ago, again, maybe 2-3 weeks ago, another paper came out based on a similar game that says this is the first paper based on dominant writing contributions and co-led authorship by non-expert citizen scientists recruited through a video game. This was so unusual that actually Science, in its news section, published a segment saying this wasn't really deemed ethical because some of those authors didn't want to publish their own names. They wanted to appear on the author line with their game names because this is what brought them to this discovery. Ultimately, they agreed to have their real names released because it was an ethical issue about taking responsibility for what's in the paper. But things are changing, and mathematics and computer science are playing important role in this changing landscape in an unusual ways, ever so unusual ways. So this whole idea of crowdsourcing that we are experiencing in so many other aspects of life has actually gotten to biomedical research, and there are some important discoveries that come out of this. And by the way, if you're interested, I can place copies of those articles on the WordPress blog, if you're kind of curious to read the papers themselves. What else? The synthetic human genome. So the Genome Project Right, this is a kind of link to the Genome Human Genome Project Read that was completed, of course, in almost over a decade ago. That raises ethical concerns. So UK gave a first green light to a researcher to edit the genome of a human embryo. Now, this researcher has sworn that they're not going to implant the embryo, so there's really no danger at this point that this modified genome, edited genome, is going to be kind of being mixed with the actual gene pool. But there are a lot of ethical issues there, and along with all of the technology issues that on the biological side arise, there are ethical issues. There is the role of mathematics, in what way mathematics can facilitate all of this. So this brings me to guidelines and policy, and of course, my focus will be on education, so I'll leave the ethical side of things to others. But there is a lot to talk about there, and there are, as we speak, literally, there are conferences and meetings that really are concerned with all sides of this issue. So backing off a little bit, going to things, things in biology are really developing at enormous speed. So when we talk about something that happened 7 years ago, this is really old news, but I want to repeat it anyway, that in 2009 we had the report that was called The New Biology for the 21st Century, and there isn't any such high-profile report has been issued since then. And it emphasized something that we are all absolutely familiar with, that the essence of the new biology is integration. Integration into biology of physics, chemists, computer science, engineers, and mathematicians to create a research community with the capacity to tackle a broad range of scientific and societal problems. And then the SciAm's response to this report, the mathematics kind of enabling the technology for the new biology, emphasized that there is much untapped potential in mathematical fields that are not traditionally considered as applied. And 6 years ago, it was mentioned that those may include algebraic geometry, the role of which was new at that time. Now we know that it has really contributed enormously to the field of biology. As far as biology goes, we need a new biology curriculum that would emphasize the interconnections among those levels of organization, is what we're talking here, the kind of multiple levels of organizations, to understand system-level phenomena. So one thing that we are not talking about, and we're not doing, and that's pretty clear, is that we're not talking about systems biology in our classroom. And this is one of the big questions that I understand that perhaps we cannot address at all levels in the curriculum, but we should at least make certain that our students are aware of what systems biology is and its advantages. And again, from the SciAm's report, mathematicians would benefit, so this is for the math majors, from a new program that supported university efforts to develop curricula and programs focused on horizontal integration of mathematics training with other disciplines. Now, if you think about the courses that we traditionally teach in our mathematics programs, they're still pretty much theoretical. And I'm a mathematician. I've been trained as a theoretical mathematician. I understand, believe me, the value and the importance of proving theorems. So nobody's saying we should quit doing that. I'm saying, in addition to that, we should also start looking around ourselves and make our students aware that there are things that can put what students are learning into their math classes, in their math classes to work, and produce really fascinating results. Now going back even further, those reports echo some of the recommendations of the Bio 2010 reports and the Math Bio 2010. And those were really great first high-profile documents that highlighted the need for mathematics and biology to work together. And John Jung, who I don't see here, but he'll be here later today, played a prominent role in those early steps. He has been there fighting for this from the 1970s when nobody else was talking about this, basically. But it really got it crystallized in those reports the importance for doing this type of collaboration. And even in those reports, see what they say. Most biology majors take no more than 1 year of calculus, although even that is unusual. Although some also take an additional semester of statistics. That would be more the norm for biology students to take statistics class. Very few are exposed to discrete mathematics, linear algebra, probability, and modeling topics, which could greatly enhance their future research careers. And the committee does not believe biology students should study calculus to the extension of other types of mathematics. So that was said 13 years ago. And what do we have now? We have, you'll see, we have primarily changes that have really been made in the calculus vein of mathematics education. But just talking about a few more reports, if you're interested, Biology Education for All Students, the Vision and Change report of the AAAS. It's an interesting report. By the way, all of those are linked on the presentation, so if you click on the picture, you will be taken to the report. And this one, among many other things, it contains all national calls for improving undergraduate science education from the last 25 years. So this is not anything new. It's been talked about for a long, long time. Then the HHMI actually stepped in at 2009 as well, talking about scientific foundation for future physicians. And one of the stated competencies there was to apply quantitative reasoning and appropriate mathematics to describe or explain phenomena in the natural world. So along all of those lines, in 2009, Reinhard Labenbacher and I published an opinion piece in Science, which basically was saying not only we need to be doing this because it's important as a follow-up to the research developments that are happening, but it's also important because calculus is really the worst, probably I should say, tool to teach mathematical modeling. Because students do not feel comfortable after they've taken just 1 semester of calculus. And when you try to teach them about modeling, the whole concept of a model is a difficult concept. It is not something that really kind of sinks in right away. It is something that takes time. It is something that takes practice, understanding. You have to take the extensive approach. And when you're building this new knowledge about what models are, what purpose they serve, and so on and so forth. If you're building them on the foundation that requires calculus and your students are really uncertain about what their calculus skills do for them and how to do certain things, they never know whether it's the calculus that's stopping them or they don't understand what the modeling concepts are. So here we were basically making the case that we should use algebraic methods, and probably Boolean systems are the easiest to get started, and to use that to develop qualitative models where the concept of developing a model could be emphasized as opposed to mathematics. And using Boolean logic is so much more intuitive than calculus that students usually respond very well to this approach. And I've tried it in my classes, so if you'd like to have more information, we can talk about this. Another thing that's changing is the MCATs have changed. So in 2012, there was this open letter from the head of the American Association of Medical Colleges, yes, where the goals of the new MCATs were explained. Then there was a perspective article in the New England Journal of Medicine making the case for, yes, we need to do that. So, if you don't believe something that the New England Journal of Medicine publishes, then you have to really be, in a different field. So they are one of the standards, of course. So they were making the case for building a better physician. And one of the new skills, one of the sections in those new skills that the new physician should have is critical analysis and reasoning skills. So another thing, the AP Biology curriculum has changed. So our students who come to first-year classes in biology or mathematics, they have now taken the new AP Biology exam. And the AP Biology exam, in one of the 7 science practices that all biology students should have, number 1 is use models and representations. So not only we have to do this, we actually owe it to our students, because now they come to their first-year biology classes in college with a whole lot more mathematical background. We may not always see it, but they have already seen those things. They have been exposed to that, so we can try to engage them in a different way. And we should. So the success story so far that I alluded to already, the biocalculus courses. So as a result, I think, my personal opinion, as a direct result of the Bio 2010 reports and the Math Bio 2010, a lot of universities decided that the calculus classes that we teach are primarily designed for physics and engineering majors, and we should reform those and teach versions of the calculus classes that cover the same material, so they can then transition seamlessly into whatever the next calculus level is, but using biological applications. And textbooks were developed, and some of those textbooks are already through their 3rd and 4th edition. So I've mentioned here Claudia Neuhauser's book. There is Greenwell and Ritchie and Lyle. James Stewart from the calculus book, many of you have seen the house that calculus built, the beautiful house that he built based on the royalties from the calculus textbooks. That same Stewart, who passed away actually 2 years ago, I think, less than maybe 1, because that book was came out in 2015. He collaborated with a biologist to produce a biocalculus textbook. So this is kind of interesting feeling that when I saw that this was coming, I said, okay, well, biocalculus, we can put a check. We've covered that. We don't need to worry about this anymore. Now, whether I see some of you are shaking your head, whether it serves the purpose that we envision for that, that's a different story. But if you want to do this, there are a lot of materials out there. So you can pick and choose. There are many sources that you can go to. Now, I did mention something about systems biology, and that we're not talking about it. And one of the kind of big misconceptions out there still is that, this is a biology course, even, at the graduate level. And it's not, as of course many of you know. So I just wanted to highlight a few books that are devoted to systems biology. Yuri Alon's book, of course, is a classic. So everyone who is interested in this field should probably take a look. I mean, he does his signature studies there of motifs and how to break a system and how to study those motifs and their behaviors, and then how to analyze the behaviors that emerge from this type of approach. There are many, many others. Ida Klipp's book just came out this month, I believe. That's the 2nd edition. And this is really a comprehensive study of all the methods, all the software that you can think of, all the continuous algebraic methods. The new thing in this edition is there are more medical applications there. So that's the element, as far as I could tell, that makes this new edition different from the previous one. In addition to all the updates for the new databases, the software, and so on. So there are many, many others, but I think that yes.
What's the target audience level?
This is what I want to talk about. So thank you for this question. It's not undergraduate. I mean, it's for really good undergraduates. Of course, you could do this. So the level probably is the level of those courses that are cross-listed as undergraduate, early graduate level courses. Good undergraduates, I'd say. I mean, again, opinions differ, so depending on what the level of your students are. So, yeah, I mean, in some cases, the concepts are not very difficult. The kind of implications are more profound, so you have to have some maturity there, which I think comes with having taken a year or two of serious math classes. But there are many others. Now, there are many resources that feature among other things, algebraic methods here and there. And of course, you start with another classic, Ullman and Rhodes, where, so phylogenetics has a good representation here. This is definitely a book that you can use with undergraduates. The thing that I've noticed here is that because it does not assume calculus as a prerequisite, the algebra at some levels gets really, really complicated. So I don't believe that anybody who fears calculus could really do the algebra that Ullman and Rhodes assume, but strictly speaking, you do not need calculus as a prerequisite. There was a special life sciences education issue in 2010 that was devoted to biology and mathematics. John Junk was one of the editors of the special issue. There are articles here that you might find interesting. John's article is about L systems. Robin and I have an article about Boolean systems and how to use those in the classroom, and many others. Luke Rose, Susan Lenhart, and Erin Bodine published this book, Mathematics for the Life Sciences, in 2014, and it has all sorts of discrete mathematics elements in it. This is for the low level, so we're talking really early introduction to mathematical elements for biology students. And they struggle, I imagine, yeah. So it's a struggle, so the struggle continues. It does continue. Again, the thing that I want to highlight is that we have resources for the low level, we have resources for the level that bridges over to graduate level. We don't seem to have much in the middle, and that's where hopefully our work will focus. Microbes Count, John Junk mentioned this book already. Here's a volume that Tim Komar edited with a few other people that has also elements, articles there that emphasize algebraic models. The Biological Esteem Collection, John mentioned it the other day, I want to highlight it again. This is Excel-based activities with a whole kind of wide range of topics. And if you Google it, it will take you to the website. It has the Excel spreadsheets already there, so you can change numbers, you can slide on certain things. As he was saying yesterday, it's a little bit dated in the sense that Excel probably isn't the tool that it was, 10 years ago, but it's still the tool that's most widely available everywhere. I mean, everybody should have access to Excel, so you don't really need any specific software. So this one is out there, and it's still a very good collection because now over the years it has expanded, it has been more well documented, so it's worthwhile taking a look. Another resources that I want to mention, and probably Drew at some point will say a few more words about it, is the CUBES project. But if you have never been to the CUBES hub, please go there. Point your browsers to this, cubeshub.org, and it's a very well organized hub, really. I want to say reason. No, it's more than that. It really, the goal is to build a community of people who have similar goals, and they communicate and find resources and exchange ideas there. So among those ideas, you can find classroom computational tools and many other resources that have been posted there. Now, talking about other resources by field. Phylogenetics probably is one of the fields where there are quite a few publications, and I've just selected a few here. Chen, Ku, and Lewis, methods, algorithms, and applications. It's kind of more on the mathematical side. Sample and Steele is one of the, again, for lack of a better word, classical books. I mean, 2003, but it's old by the standards of what's happening in biology. So it's a well-known book. Felsenstein is another one. Again, there are probably many others. At the end of this talk, what we would like to do is talk about resources that you have experienced, and perhaps, compile a list of that is a lot more comprehensive than this. But there are books in phylogenetics. Some are more biologically oriented, some are more mathematically oriented. Of course, all are both in a way, because they cannot be otherwise. The thing is, if you look again for something that fits that particular niche, sophomore, junior, senior level, it's difficult to find resources that are pitched at this level. And also, it's very difficult to find good projects that are doable in a relatively short period of time, but they're instructional in the way that you do something by hand yourself, and then you say, I see it now. I really understand what this is all about. Topological models and methods. I've just listed two books. One is older and probably better known. The other one is an edited collection. And Natasha Jonoska is one of the editors. She can tell you more about this one, but it's organized by it's several biological topics, and then the mathematics within each one of those topics varies depending upon what you need to do and what your question is. So you kind of pick the appropriate mathematical tools there. So that's another field that we could look at in terms of figuring out, and today Chad and Katie will probably say more about this. Then there is, of course, the huge field of RNA, DNA, and protein folding. And here the selection that I have prepared is an eclectic selection. Again, because there are resources that you find there. What I again wanted to emphasize that you have the high and the low ends covered in a certain way. So Christian Radis's book is definitely the high end. You have a lot of serious mathematics there, not just algebraic methods. So you have stochastic methods and branching processes, and but you cannot really teach an undergraduate course out of it. Plus, we're not talking about teaching a course on this topic exclusively. I mean, in the undergraduate curriculum, we probably will not have that luxury of teaching a course that's so specialized. So we're talking more about finding appropriate projects, appropriate topics that we would like to examine in our courses among other projects. One book that is more probably at the level where we want it is Knots, Molecules, and the Universe. It's a relatively new book, Erika Flapan. It is more mathematical in the way that we take inspiration from protein, RNA, and DNA folding, and then we formulate the mathematical problems, and we run with them, and we hardly ever look back. I'm not being completely honest, but it is more on the kind of mathematical side of things. There is the, applications of knot theory, proceedings of a symposium of applied mathematics that happened in 2009. There is even, the origami convention. People who publish their proceedings, have an interesting material there on RNA and DNA folding that uses origami. So if you want to teach something with hands-on, that's probably a good place to start. It will be unusual for your students. Boolean networks. Here is a book that focuses on how Boolean networks could be appropriate for solving problems, medical problems. Again, a very good book. Doesn't have as much exercises and projects as one would like to be able to use it as a teaching resource. So this is more of a kind of, if I want to learn about the topic, I'll take that book and read it. Probabilistic Boolean networks are important, so Shmulevich and Doherty, high level. Matt Macaulay alerted me to this book. I wasn't aware of it. Thomas and Dari, I guess. Thomas, I don't know, they're French. And it's a book that's very Belgium, okay, all right. But it's been published in English, right? Originally. So I cannot, it's very difficult to find this book actually. If you, so yeah, tell me about.
So you can find the PDF online, and it's been updated in 2006 with a lot of resolutions, conjectures, and things like that.
Wonderful. So that's, but this is a mathematical resource. So this is, if you really, or, okay. And that's, yeah, that's good to know. Yeah. So this is something that until very, very recently I wasn't even aware. Yeah. So that's great because. So what I was saying is, we all probably should take a look because math recommends it very highly. And since then I've talked with a few people and they've said that, yeah, it's a good book. I haven't had a chance to review it myself. And then both of the books that we showed the other day, and they're still kind of circulating here, they have elements of Boolean networks. Here, again, we've tried to pitch them at the level where we think we could use them as classroom resources, and Matt has taught a class that he's going to tell us a little bit more about in the next talk. So this one has Boolean networks for modeling things with that kind of parallel the way you'd model with differential equations, including delays and kind of looking at the issue of bistability. This one has a chapter there on asynchronous updates and signal transduction and Boolean network approach to those topics. And then I should say, many times I talk about those things, people say, oh, come on, you just give up. You cannot teach those things to undergraduates. That's just not the way it is. And when this book came out in 2005, everybody said, okay, see, it pitches itself, it promotes itself as a book for undergraduates, and it's very dense. You cannot really, you need to take a topic and then expand it considerably to be able to present it to undergraduates. And yes, but the classic book, and now this is the 4th edition, I think. 5th edition, Cox, Little, and O'Shea. You can actually teach an introduction to algebraic geometry without too much trouble to undergraduates, and they really their book is a proof that you can do this because it's been around for a long time and it has really gone through several editions, and a lot of people use their book and they use it with undergraduates. Those are different books, yeah. So this one came first. I've just featured here the last edition. This one is 2003, the first edition, I believe. Yeah. This one is, after they wrote that one, Ideals, Varieties, and Algorithms, they got together and said, okay, let's do something on how we can use algebraic geometry. So they have the applications here. And if you take elements of this book and you expand them, you can get some really good projects when you kind of fill in the intermediate steps on the mathematics. And then there are the general things. I just threw them in, some of them just for fun. Mitch Cousins, who is a DIMAX, has a volume that talks about biomath in the schools, and she does food webs there and graph theory and many other applications. So this is a resource is worthwhile looking into. Proving Darwin, making biology mathematical. Fun to read, more on the philosophical side if you're curious. And then, some general text on combinatorics of permutations where, biological applications are featured. And then, those two books which I said, and so we're really, really hoping to have one in 2018 with help from all of you. Now, how have, this, I want to call it movement, but it's not yet a movement. I want to call it initiative. How has it developed? So we've had a series of workshops. Robin and I have done several for the MAA, in the early 2010, 2011. Then John Junk did this graph theory and biological networks tutorial here at NIMBioS. At 12 to 13, Terrell Hodge, Maths, Macaulay, and I did one at NIMBioS that led to one of the publications. There are several others that NIMBioS has hosted. Kristen Jenkins, so this is the BioQuest team, again, hosting a tutorial here at NIMBioS. We were here for a tutorial in 2014, Algebraic and discrete biological models for undergraduate courses. We tested some of the materials for one of the volumes here. Robin and I did a mini course at the MAA, so we're trying to spread the gospel, so to speak. And the reaction has been positive. The thing is, people say, yes, I want to do this. I'm interested in doing this. I do not have time for developing resources on my own. And when we talk about developing resources, we really talk about something that has the exposition the right way with the right level of detail, then it has a lot of exercises. It has a lot of connections with actual data or actual activities. So it doesn't have to be really quantitative. It could be qualitative, but you have to be able to see something, experience something, play with something, do something on your own to feel that, okay, I've understood what's happening here. And then hopefully have projects that really are at the level of student research that make things appropriate for independent student work. And those projects could be used for summer research projects, for independent reading courses. I've used some of those myself, so I can share some personal experiences. And then finally, just to say that there is an organization here that many of you, of course, know of. There is a special interest group that is part of the Mathematical Association of America that's called BioSigma. So this is where all the kindred spirits of what we want to do can be found. If you're not a member, I would encourage you to check the special interest group out. BioSigma, again, is the name. The way it works is now MAA has a standard membership, and then it has 14 probably by now, maybe more, special interest groups. And you add $12, I believe, is the current membership fee. That you oh, you do? Okay. There we go. So you get 2 for free now. I don't see why not, because they can become members of MAA. We actually give our major student memberships, right? So that I don't know. I mean, if we have 2 free Sigmas now with a membership, probably not, because the students get a significantly reduced membership fee. And as a matter of fact, many departments would really sponsor the membership of their majors. They have this program at the MA. So MAA, the BioSigma at MAA has a listserv where people are posting questions about textbook materials and, hey, I'm doing this, and do you know of a good resource? So it's a very good community to join if you are interested.